Glad to see you. I've been getting a lot of questions lately from people trying to understand. They're coming up to me and they're like, I want to preach, I want to share my faith, and I feel very convicted that I need to share what I'm learning, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do that. And I want to know how to put together a sermon. Um, and so, because of just getting so many of these questions, I decided I'm going to make a video and I'm going to provide this for you. And then let me know in the comments if you have any questions at any time that you'd like more elaboration in a certain area. I'd love to make videos for you. Just let me know. I'm here to help. I have a personal goal for this year to develop as many public speakers and teachers and those who feel comfortable and confident and capable of giving an answer for the reason of the hope that's in them with meekness and fear. I recognize there is such an influx of new believers that are seeking for instruction and aid and encouragement, and there's not enough established and grounded Christians that are able to share with others. So my goal is to fix that and to do something to make a difference in changing and equipping you to be able to go out and share with others. So part of doing that is I'm going to show you my process of how I put together a sermon. This is by no means exhaustive, but it's just a little nugget to help get you along the way. Now, first of all, if you haven't already, I encourage you to go back and to watch some of the previous videos where I show you how I study the Bible, how to be intentional with your devotions, how to create um, a personal encyclopedia of the different subjects that you study, and create a list and an archive of your own personal Bible studies, because that's one of the prerequisites. I um, I I find it's a lot more difficult to put together a sermon notes for a topic that I have no notes on. I'd much rather start with something that I already have something for. So I show you how to do that in other videos, but I'm just going to assume that you are with me and you already have some notes to start with. And for instance, I'm going to use the subject of the study of the 10 talents. That is something that I do want to preach a sermon on here very shortly. So I'm going to show you what my process is on how to do that. So here is a document about the study on the 10 talents. I want to create a document called, I'm going to call it Sermon on Spiritual Gifts. That's a really bad title for a very terrible title for search engine optimization for people to actually find that. I pray that the Lord give me a better system for creating new titles, but because I want to see these side by side, I'm going to put that over on one side, and I'm going to put this on the other side. I want to be able to access them both at the same time. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I hope you're able to see when I do this. Hope you're able to see both of them side by side. We'll see how that goes. So anyways, here is my study, and I have some different sections over here. It's probably pretty small that you can't see it, but I can. So for the spiritual gifts, one thing that every basic sermon has an intro, and it has a body, and it has a conclusion. These are the three basic skeleton sketch of what your sermon is going to look like. If you do this for every sermon, it's going to flow a whole lot better. So the intro is also kind of like the hook. It's a promise. Let people know what you're promising, what benefit they're going to have, what questions you're going to answer. If something very simple is, think to yourself, what are some commonly asked questions that people have regarding the subject that you're talking about? Like, for instance, for me, my hook is likely going to be, it's hard for me to think or speak and type at the same time, so I'm just going to say it. It's like, we're going to be talking about spiritual gifts. What have you ever wondered what your spiritual gifts are? Have you ever thought that, you know, I'm not like, what are my gifts? What am I good at? Or what has God called me to do? What's my purpose in life? You see that there are some really talented individuals, and you're like, whoa, they got a beautiful gift, but that's not my gift. And um, so how do you identify what your gifts are? And has God, do I even have any gifts? Do I have anything to offer? Then today, if you've ever asked those questions, we're going to answer them. So stay tuned, and after we pray, we're going to be able to talk about that together, and we're going to seek answers to these questions. And so that's how you can do like a hook, an intro. But what I would suggest you do is I wouldn't script out your sermon, but make bullet points. Bullet points are so helpful, and make a list of all your the verses and quotes that you're going to be using and as you share. But bullet points will bring to your remembrance and help you to know your subject rather than memorizing the subject. It's going to be a whole lot more powerful that way. The scripts can just be pretty intense if you do that. So have a hook, have a promise, some sort of introduction. And what I would do is no matter what the subject is think about think about your audience. Who are you speaking to? And what is going on in their life? What is the, what common misunderstandings are they going to have with the subject you're looking at? For me, I'm dealing with, very likely, I'm going to be talking, most people don't realize that talents can be acquired, they can be developed, they can grow. Some people don't know what the talents are. People think there's a difference between talents and gifts. People want to know what their calling is. People want to know different things like that. So these are the things that I'm going to be attempting to answer. And some people don't know that there are certain talents that are given to every man, woman, and child. So having to address that, these are things that I need to prove from the scriptures, what this is. And it's a really good idea to have a theme. This is very important. If your sermon does one thing and does it really, really well, the more focused you can bring that point, and you see that you can bring up different points, but have one theme that is like a golden thread that goes throughout the entire presentation. It's going to be very clear, and people will see that. This is like that one sentence that if someone was like, hey, what was the sermon about? You don't want them to be like, I don't know. I want people to be, for this sermon, they're like, the theme was about the sermon was about how every one of us has talents, and God wants us to use it for his service. And these are some of the talents that I found that I have. Like, that's the type of reaction I want people to have with this study, and the aha moments. So I can give them a few of those, but this is the theme through it all. So intro, body, conclusion. Now I go kind of into the body. I mean, anytime that you are talking about something, you can always answer the question who, when, where, what, how, why. You have the 5 why, the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, sometimes how. So you ask, like, who does this involve? Who gives the talents? Well, the talents come from Christ. They involve everyone. Like, here's the question: has every man been giving gifts? So 1 Corinthians 12:7, yes, every man has been given gifts. If we look at this section, there's like 5 verses, 6 verses, and a few quotes on this, just answering this question. Generally in a sermon, this is a good principle. The book of Corinthians, well, also Deuteronomy 19:16 says, out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. Generally, you don't need more than 2 or 3 proof texts to prove a point. Even though you might have like 10, it's best not to give people 10 verses just to show, yes, every man has talents. 1, 2, 3, that's usually better, 2 or 3, and to prove a point, and 3 if it's a really important point. But just keep in mind that an hour sermon is usually going to be, depending on how much commentary you have, it's going to be about 20 to 25 verses. That's the general rule of thumb. If you're nervous, you might talk faster and you might go through your material a lot faster. But if you know your subject well, then you can kind of gauge how much you want to talk. And also, uh, if if you don't prepare very much, you might find that you're talking longer. But if you do give some thought or preparation, then you'll find that you'll be able to cover more grounds and be more intentional with the time that you have as you're teaching people. So I'm able to put that on there. The Spirit, every man, and how God has given to each man according to several abilities. So what I want to do is I basically want to skim through. I want to show, answer these questions like, why does God give us gifts? He gives us gifts because our purpose is ministry. I like that. So I can just take that. That's pretty simple. I have 2 proof texts there. Then I'm going through my notes I want to share with people. Here Paul says not to be ignorant. That sounds like a good introduction. You put that at the intro. Why is it? This answers the question why. Why do I care? Who cares if I know about spiritual gifts? Well, because Paul said he doesn't want us. God says he doesn't want us to be ignorant about spiritual gifts. That's pretty important. So throw that in there, let people know. I want to show, this quote's pretty powerful. Our first duty to God and to our fellow beings is in self-development. So we need to develop our talents as a duty to God and man. That's very good. I like that. I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna put that on there. Probably don't need the whole thing, but I want to find a proof text. I don't just want to quote that, but I want to find a proof text for that. So what I'll do is I'll go to Matthew 25, and then I realize that this is basically going to be based on Matthew 25 or 1 Corinthians 12. Depends on what angle I take it. Probably do it part 2. Part 1 would be 1 Corinthians 12. Part 2 would be Matthew 25 and helping people to identify it. But here it says, ooh, he gave every man according to his several abilities. This was a good text over here. He's given to every man, according to his several ability. Good. I want the part where it says, oh, put it to my exchanger right there. Here's a proof text. So God says that you ought to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should receive mine own with usury. So God is going to come to us and he's going to be like, look, where is the talent that I gave you? I trusted you with time. I trusted you with knowledge, with wisdom, with influence, and I want you, and with money, and I want you to increase this. At the second coming of Christ, he's going to expect us to have more than what he gave us and to use it rightly employed. So this is our first duty. So here's the proof text, and then I'll just paraphrase that when I teach, when I share it. I may not necessarily give the reference, but that will be my commentary. I like to use the quotes as my commentary because I know it's true, but just use the Bible as the authority, as the text to prove every statement that I make. And then just go down the list like that. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm seeing what are the categories that I want to show. Speech is a gift. Like that would be a powerful sermon there. Just go over all these different gifts. I've done a whole sermon on time being a gift, how important that is. Um, you could do a whole sermon on money being a gift, health, repentance, cooking. Oh, all these are good. Influence. Um, but basically what you want to do is you have your intro, your body, your conclusion, and um, and this is putting together uh, groups of text, 2 or 3, that are going to assist you with your theme to get your major point across so that people are able to get that one thing and get it really, really well. And if you do that, then you've got a pretty successful sermon. And with your conclusion, you want to appeal to people's hearts. You want to never leave a sermon without giving an appeal, a practical application of what this applies, because uh, learning should be active. What good is you sharing if it's just theoretical? It needs to be practical godliness in every sermon. So what are you calling people to do? And my appeal is to to use your talents for God. Stop using them for selfish purposes. Don't bury them in the earth, but work together. We can accomplish so much more together than we ever could apart. God, we need to work together and recognize that we are a member of the same body, and that when we attack each other, we are attacking ourselves, because because each member, just because we're not a hand doesn't mean we're not part of the body. And the organ the the mouth cannot eat without the hands, but the 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 food doesn't do the body any good without the stomach. And and we can't say that the legs, they're strong, so they matter more, because without the stomach digesting the food, they're just not going to help. So, well, that would be more of a body and kind of going through the analogy. But the point is, we need to work together, and we can't belittle one another or discredit one another. Now is the time to give all of ourselves wholly consecrated to God, to His service, and to use our talents for Him. And basically, that's how you put together a sermon. It's pretty simple. If you want to do slides, then we got videos on slides. That's a little different, but that makes it very simple. And hopefully this will be helpful to you. Intro, body, conclusion, who, what, when, or why. Answer some of these questions. 2 or 3 witnesses will establish a thing. If you want to know how many verses you can get through, usually about 20 to 25, depends on how much commentary you give. But these are definitely a blessing. If you find they start losing attention, throw in a personal testimony, and you will get their attention again. People will pay attention. They love testimonies. This is what helps you relate to your audience. And if you have an opportunity to speak before the people, then God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called, and you're on the right path. I'm really glad to hear you're sharing your faith. Thank you for watching. I hope this is a blessing.